Don't be ghetto. Hey, boo thing. It's your cool auntie. Just checking in with your cousin Jaffe. Jaffe, say hi. He's so stank. Say hi. I can't take him. But we just wanted to say thank you so much for tapping in. What you are about to watch this week is a new segment that we call Hooks and Ha's. And that's where I sit down with a few of my friends and we talk about complex issues and complex topics. And so this particular episode, we are talking about our road to acceptance, accepting our brokenness, accepting and really assessing our pain points. If you remember back in our intro episode to our series, Broken Crayons Still Color, I mentioned those 5 principles. One of those principles is that you have to be real to heal. A common misperception is that you have to pretend to be okay all of the time, and you don't. Just like with physical needs, you have to get diagnosed before you or God can perform surgery. And so me and some of my friends sit down, some really close, amazing women sit down and talk about some of our issues and some of our pain points and our road to acceptance. And so I hope, A, that you enjoy it, but more importantly, that you get value from it, because that's really what this is about. And so as we're sharing ours, I hope that you find some commonalities, but also I encourage you to think about your own as well. And I'll check back in with you after it's over. Love you.
What up, what up, what up? It's your girl Tania, aka the Cool Auntie, and this is the Cool Auntie podcast. And y'all, I'm excited today. Ask me why. Why? Because I finally got somebody to talk to. It's boring as hell talking to myself, and now I got people. Okay, because Rona's had us in the house. Hey sis, I missed y'all. And so today we have our very first Hooks and Ha's episode, where I invite some other cool aunties to the table. And these 2 cool aunties today are my road dogs, my ride or dies, my in the mud, in the sandbox homies, who I would love to introduce, but I don't do them any justice. So I want y'all to introduce yourselves, but I also want to ask you a icebreaker question, and that is, what are you listening to right now? I'm really into like music and audiobooks. I want to know what everybody is consuming right now. What y'all got? What y'all got for me?
All right. Hey y'all, it's your Auntie Sash. By day, I am a social worker in a hospital dealing with acute inpatient crisis and different things. So yes, I'm out here saving lives.
You are essential, honey. Essential.
Too essential sometimes, but yes, I am essential. By night, I am a wife to be.
Can we zoom in on? Okay. Yes! It's a wife. It's a wife.
Okay, make sure I'm here. Okay. And then I'm a mother to 2 amazing children, and then of course we are growing our family. What I am currently listening to, Bible app. Can't neglect that. And you can also do the audio. It also will play the scriptures for you and go through the books while you're driving in your car. It's something quick to listen to, and it's good because it centers you. The other thing, I gotta have my R&B. So give me a Drew Hill on a Pandora, or a Cardi B for the ratchet ones.
See, this slow wine works for either or. Okay, I can give you Cardi or Drew with this. That's what's up. All right, Ange.
Hey y'all, it's Shanti. I am an interior designer by day, by night, by evening, I don't know, in between.
All day, 24/7.
24/7, call me. I am the owner into interior architectural designs, and I also work for Determined by Designs. I focus on affordable and supportive housing as well as residential design. What am I listening to? So,
can I do this to it?
All podcasts. Yeah, you can listen. I'm listening to podcasts. Just another podcast. Shout out to Dr. William Anu.
Emphasis on the doctor.
All doctor. And then I'm listening to music-wise, Jhené Aiko, Beyonce all day, and Anita Baker has The Key to My Heart.
Facts. Okay, and that's a lot of women. Okay, I like that. Okay, I love it. I'm not gonna lie, but listen to some really sad things. Only because we talk about Broken Crayons Still Color, and I kind of built a playlist. I can't wait to drop that this week, but I built a playlist around kind of telling my broken crayon story. I think to that point, I love to ask that question. I think sometimes music has this effect of like when you can't find the words to express how you're feeling and you don't know how to articulate it. Sometimes you find that good song and just takes the words and the feelings right out your body. Yes. And so I always love to hear people listening to, especially with us going through so much right now. But to be honest, I love having y'all here. I'm so excited because y'all know we just kind of getting this thing started, and the response has been surprising. I know it shouldn't be surprising, but it's been surprisingly really, really good. But more importantly, I've had people really kind of sharing their broken crayon stories with me in the DMs, and I think just it's crazy that I didn't think about it before, but this idea that brokenness looks so different in everybody, right? That it comes in different shapes and sizes. You know what? I think a common misperception is that everyone has this one breaking point, right? But I think from even the conversations that we've had one-off and some of the stories in my DMs, I think we're learning that brokenness it happens over time. Right? And I know, I know Sash, you study mental health, and I know, again, and we just been through our own personal journeys, but sometimes I want to kind of start our conversation off is kind of going back a little bit, because a common misperception is that brokenness happens in adulthood, right? But I'm a firm believer that I think brokenness happens a lot younger, and we just notice the symptoms more in adulthood. And I don't think that we look at our childhoods enough. Right. And so I guess my first question to you all is, if you could remember, what do you feel like your breaking moment, or like when did you realize that you weren't, that life wasn't life was real and that life wasn't a fairy tale anymore? Deep question.
Wow. Yeah. I think I realized it because, like you said, when it comes back to our childhood, we always had the symptoms, and there are so many things that we endured, and emphasis on that word, because it was more so like we just learned to cope with it, and we normalized a lot of things. And once you got to be an adult, you had some things in your adult life happen, and that's when we felt like we were broken, and that wasn't it. So for me, it was just the loss of a lot of an intimate partner and some close friends, like people I would bet money on, like, oh, we will never fall out. Me and him never going to break up. This is going to be the husband. Clearly, that wasn't him. But those things, those things happen, and you're like gun ho on it, right? And then some life happens, and they're no longer here, and that's when you think like that's where I was broken, and it's like, no, sis.
Right. But you brought up
a long time ago.
But you brought up a good point I want to come back to about this idea of normalizing. Because I think too, especially as Black women, I think sometimes we boast about how like we call strength, like how much how much pain we can deal with, right? And we've normalized pain so much. I think even like growing up, I was taught not to share our business, right? So I think sometimes too, one of the biggest things that's happening, we see, is that everyone's afraid to show and be open and honest about their brokenness, right? Because I don't know about y'all, but I was told we don't
air our dirty laundry.
Period.
You better talk through your teeth.
Period. But I think the danger in that is that like this idea of hurting people, because we're not addressing our own hurt, we're taking that hurt and we're putting it on other people, and therefore contributing to their hurt. And so again, I love this podcast. I think sometimes too, and why I think it's so important is that at the end of the day, I don't know about y'all, but I've been through so much stuff that I ain't go through that shit for no reason. And if me sharing that story, I saw a quote on Instagram the other day, and it was like, just like the power in the untold stories of Black women.
Yes.
Right?
Let's pass that wisdom. Let's give that on to the next generation.
Yeah.
And which is the people beside us, the people in front of us, the people behind us. Stop holding on to it like we've always had our shit together. No, we haven't.
Absolutely.
I've never always looked like this.
because we're smiling, but we're smiling. This is the aftermath. This is years.
You never would have made it, child.
This is 2 years of therapy you're looking at right here. Right? And so, like, I want to kind of go backwards of like, if you could think of, and I know it's kind of hard to pinpoint one, but just like, what is a childhood trauma? Or what is a brokenness that you feel like as a child that you've kind of seen the symptoms of as an adult?
I think I'll think about like my parents, both of my parents, having them both in my life. You usually think that you have individual parent trauma, and you do, but you can also have trauma with both parents. And I think that I felt trauma from my dad, learning how to manage the streets, and him teaching me that and feeling like I was his daughter. And so the daughter had to play the role of a son. And being that strong and fierce and conviction from a child, you know what I'm saying? And then with my mother, when there was trauma of growing and having me young, 15 going on 16.
Y'all were growing together. Y'all were growing up together.
Right? And so with my mother, it was, she did not show a level of affection, and she's growing into that person now, and I love her dearly. And she's growing into that person of showing affection, learning how to show affection. But I grew up not knowing how to love without gift giving, and that is trauma. My love language was gift giving, and it wasn't affection because I didn't know what that was.
Facts. I used to love people into loving me. Period. Okay, you talk about like, so I think, again, I love that you said that, because a common misperception is that only people who have single parents got issues. It's like, nah, baby, you can have two parents in the house and still have issues. But I think I've experienced, I didn't realize it was even abandonment until it came up in therapy as an adult, of my biological father, who, to your point, Ange, like we have a relationship now that's growing, and I love him now. But growing up, he actually gave up his parental rights when I was 4. And then my mom remarried, and then that husband also left. And so I've experienced high levels of abandonment. And so like you, I was a person out here just loving anybody and anything that would love me back. And I feel like, to that point of, many a time we talk about brokenness being something that somebody else does, when sometimes you can actually be the person hurting you, and you contribute into your own brokenness. And I think sometimes putting myself in relationships that did not serve me well because I wanted to be loved, well, it definitely was how it showed up. How about you, Saj? That was dope.
Yeah, so a lot of times we got to check in, and because we are so used to, like I said, enduring situations, we don't realize that anything is off or anything is different until something happens. And it's like, wait a minute, I'm off, something's wrong. What can we do about it? So I had to, at some point realize that every woman isn't my mother. I can't.
Now break that down for me, because we didn't even, because like, again, we hear a lot about daddy issues. We don't talk enough about mommy issues.
And Very true. Talk about mommy issues. And the thing is that I'm pretty sure, I guess people in my family would, or my mother will probably deny this, but she feels like because she was physically there, she provided, we had clothes, and she paid the bills, and she had 2 jobs, that I shouldn't have mommy issues. But I had mommy issues, and it took a long time for me to be able to even identify what it was. Because even with having a great father, a great single father, who then, raised me the second half of my life, it still was a gap there. There still was brokenness there. So I had to really come to terms with what it was.
That's crazy. I can only imagine that now, because, again, this idea of sometimes what we're seeing is not actually our brokenness, but symptoms of it, right? And so even like you now being a mother, right? Like us now, we're kind of in that age and we're starting families now. And so we're thinking about, again, I want to make sure we're clear about, I think it's always great when it comes to parenting. I can't speak for everybody else's parent, but like my mom, her mom was a drunk. Okay, and so my mom, I feel like I always say whether my childhood wasn't perfect, my mom did the best that she could with what she had. I talk to students all the time now about how I feel like sometimes we're hard on our parents but we don't realize that they're survivors. Like the time that they grew up, the era they grew up, they knew to survive, and that was it, right? And I feel like now we have more options and more opportunities.
Yeah.
Even things like therapy, like that we can go. Like therapy wasn't a thing, and it definitely wasn't being normalized then. But therapy kind of taught me the importance of unlearning, because we don't talk about that enough. Unlearning. So I guess my second question now is, knowing that, right, and that we've all kind of experienced childhood trauma, what is something that you've had to learn to unlearn or learn to release as you're kind of building your own life and your own families?
So I had to learn, and this is very recent because I have not always had my shit together. I'm being very transparent.
I don't got it together now, so you got me one up, sis. Listen.
I had to unlearn to not be so hypervigilant. Let me break that down, because hypervigilance comes from trauma. It's a trauma symptom. And I'm in mental health, and this is how we know that, wow, there's trauma there. They're very hypervigilant to normal situations. In other words, you're being very irrational to what's happening. And I, as an adult, had to check in with myself, like, well, how come when, Bay has his own life, it makes me feel some type of way? Because I'm just being transparent. Why am I putting certain responsibilities on him that's not his responsibility? I mean, we best friends, but I need to give people space. So what is that? And so I had to check in with me to really realize, is it them or is it me? Or is it them or is it my trauma symptoms?
Facts. I'm actually so crazy. I'm the opposite. I think dealing with abandonment, I don't trust men. Or I think I'm learning. I don't want to say I don't trust them now, because I think I've learned over time to trust them more. But I think not being able to depend on a man at a young age made me a hyper independent woman, to where when I was in relationships, I had a hard time letting them do things for me, because I'm like,
Yeah.
Because if I get used to you doing it and you leave me and I'm stuck trying to figure it out for myself. So I was like, okay, you ain't never gonna catch me sleeping, right? Okay, Edge. Okay, you ain't never gonna catch me sleeping like that. So I had to unlearn hyper independence, I feel like.
Yeah. And you know what's so crazy? That's where it comes into play, the daddy issues versus the mommy issues. See, my father has always been consistent, even when my mother tried to, kind of shun that situation. Because my parents were married. My father always wanted us. And our relationship was always very solid. We're almost the same person. So growing up and then being raised by him at some point, it taught me, like, oh, okay, I can trust the man, I can depend on the man, this is what I'm supposed to be, this is what I'm supposed to do. So it's very natural for me and my husband, or soon-to-be husband, to have a great relationship. What I had to realize was, at some point, I was putting on too much responsibility, because my abandonment issues were still there. And the thing is, you don't realize it, because when you got one decent parent, you're like, oh, I'm straight. Whatever happened with the other parent, that's cool, no. It still needs to be addressed, it's still there.
Facts. Now, and you had two parents. How does that play? Because, to that point, they could be physically present and not present. So what does that look like for you?
That's it. They were providers. I ate. Okay? I was going to eat.
That's love. I fed you, didn't I?
I fed you in what they knew was love, what they felt. And, I've learned this. My parents are the best parents they knew how to be growing up, right? And raising me. So they fed me in a level of love. But then when I experienced a different family, a two-parent household in a relationship that had what I thought was a whole lot of love and a whole lot of cooperation, that kind of made me feel like I wanted something else. So my parents didn't give it to me, because these were our elders. They were elder parents, and seemed like they had it all together. And I wanted that, and I yearned for that, because I was missing it from my household. And that that just walks into a whole nother story.
You know what? It's a good segue because I think, you know what, that also leads, I think, to that point of, because I think sometimes too as children, what we lack, we grow up looking for those things in other people. So to that point of always feeling like people were leaving me, I had a hard time. Like I was always like, when I met somebody, it could be a friend to that point. I think about you, Sash, like when I met people, if you were my friend, it meant you had to be ride or die and you could never leave me. And if you, matter of fact, I remember both, I think it's in two cases, I remember I got mad at Ange one time because I thought, that she was trying to replace me. And then same with Sash, like Sash was like a sister to me. I'm like, like y'all can't have no other friends, like friends. You don't need other friends. I am with Tania. You want today? I switch hair.
But that makes me feel just a little better because honestly, and that's nothing about trauma. It makes you feel like you're by yourself. Only you think that way. Only you feel that. Nobody else is feeling that way. Everybody else is whole. That's not the case.
Absolutely.
Because I too have felt that way. And that's why as an adult, and I will never forget 2016, worst year of my adult life. I had so many traumatic events that happened that just triggered all of the brokenness that I had covered up. Because remember, we put on layers. The makeup, the lipstick, the slayed hair, the careers, the cars, the new friends, the new man. Those are all cover-ups for a lot of the trauma that we are covering up.
That's how we start our conversations. We start our conversations reading our accolades than just, hey, how are you? It's more so, my name is, and this is what I do, and this is what I am, and this is what you saw me pull up in. Don't worry about it, sweetheart. It's all of that.
Right.
100%.
And we wonder why dating is so hard nowadays because sometimes you aren't finding, like, it's like layers, it's onions with people. And sometimes you done already had a child with a person before you really get to know who they are. Because by the time you peel back all the mask and the things that they put on, you be like, whoa. You be like, you know.
I wasn't ready.
Will they be a good parent? Will they hold my hand? Will they act like this? Will they treat me like this person treated me? Will they well, damn, hello.
But you know what though? We end up walking right into new trauma. Like, because we didn't address the past hurt. We're like, okay, you know what? This is new. This doesn't hurt as much as the last thing hurt, so it has to be better, right? Like, I can't tell you. People have a harder time believing that I was in an abusive relationship, and I'm like, why? And I think it partially because I was so good at pretending, which I think some of us are so good at pretending and putting on this front, mind you, social media.
And normalcy, we normalize a lot of things. Yeah. Like we endure just to get through.
And social media don't make it no better now because now it's a whole another screen and now you really don't have to know what I got going on. You know, But you know what though? But you know what? One thing I can say about social media, what I have appreciated, even like now with this podcast, is that to this point of the idea of sharing our stories, we can help with the healing, right? And like that, maybe like I hope this podcast and why it's called the Cool Auntie to begin with is, I wish I had that older woman to put me on game. I wish I had somebody who, to your point, Sash, made me feel like I wasn't by myself. Because when I was going through all of that stuff, it did feel like that, you know? And so if nothing else on this healing journey, I'm hoping that as we heal, and mind you, healing, I don't think it's ever... So full transparency, when I first started this, I sent them these questions. One of the questions was, how did you know you were fully healed? But then we looked at that question, we said,
Am I? Are we?
Like, is there such is there even a thing such as that? So I guess, like, I kind of want to ask, what is your healing? And I say not what does your healing journey look like? 'Cause I think it's easy to say, oh, I'm healed, but many a times we mistake absence of pain as healing. Right? That just because it don't hurt the same.
Listen,
I'm healed.
Yeah. Listen, and I remember, my pastor had made a great point one day. He said...
Shout out to Compassion, Philly.
So he stated, because he keeps it 100, okay? Probably like 110. But he said, you forgave that person, right? He says, okay, well, if you run into them, how would you feel?
With or without a weapon? But that's real though, right? Like,
Point taken. Okay. So a lot of times we think that we're healed. And I said, no, I even said. Because I said before, I forgive my mom. Straight face. I must have been having a great day, a great week. Okay? Because I mean, I was so serious with it. And then my pastor said that. But not only did I think of my mother, I thought of a lot of people that have caused any type of traumatic event in my life. And I'm like, okay, when I see them, am I still responding in a way of trauma? Am I still like, oh, is my flight or fight kicking in? Am I just trying to avoid them altogether, or do I act like they don't exist? Either way, all of those things show that we have not forgiven, therefore we have not healed. We just forgotten at some point, because, they say time heals all. It's not that time heals all. With time, you forget. You learn to endure. You obtain different coping skills.
Yeah.
absolutely.
I think for me, I have not forgiven. Well, Lila, I haven't forgiven that person, but I have not forgiven myself.
Woo! Okay, hold on, Ange. Hold on. Because that's an episode, that's a topic in itself, right? Because I'm gonna go back to something that both of y'all said. I think also recognizing sometimes that healing is a journey. It's a process. And to that point about how I think we assume that just it's time by itself is what healing is. But healing is actually to that point of going through each stage of grief. I was listening to a podcast and he was saying how so many times we associate grief with just death. Mm. But grief is actually the loss the loss of anything that you once cared about. So even if a person didn't actually physically leave this earth,
if they left your life, it's the same.
Yes. Yes.
I love that you say that, because 2016 was just horrific. And I mean, I walked, and I should have known something when January hit. By January 30th, I was done with the year. And I should have known then, okay, God, let me...
Okay, first of all, January 30th is the year, because January is long as fuck.
But it is, right? And by then, I mean, so many things had happened in that 1 month. I should have known, okay, let me buckle my seatbelt, let me put my knee pads on, let me put my helmet on, and everything the heck else, because I'm on for some shit. Because that's literally how that year went.
Right. But grief is not sexy, though. We live in a culture where, you can't care too much. You can't, because it's too vulnerable.
What's wrong with you? Yeah. Yeah. And it make you feel crazy. It's like, oh, I'm sorry I gave a damn. I'm sorry that when I said I love that person, I actually loved them. And I'm sorry that 30 days later, after being with somebody for X amount of years, that I just stopped, I unloved them. How do you do that? Can somebody send me the keys?
It's so crazy. I tell people all the time, I think why I'm learning the importance, it's crazy to have a podcast, but I'm learning the importance of language. 'Cause I never forget, to that point when I was in an abusive relationship, I had a best friend at the time. I say at the time, keyword, because she was the first person that when he hit me the very first time, she was the first person that I told. And I will never forget her response. It was actually the last time we ended up being free. We obviously weren't friends after that, but she said, "You're stupid if you stay." Mind you, just had the most horrific thing ever happen to me. And I tell a person who I care about or who I think cares about me how I'm feeling, right? Because a common misconception about abuse, that people assume that you always just stay because you're dumb. Like you don't realize that when it comes to abuse and especially when you join lives together, I think too, we be having babies, we join lives together too fast before we get to know people, right? And so sometimes when you create that life, I mean, at the time we were living together, we were sharing vehicles, we had a joint life, so it wasn't a simple F you, I'm out. It takes in time and intention and planning and saving money and calculating but a common thing is that we assume that people well, just get over it. It always, when it's not your trauma, it seems so
easy. So easy to provide the solution.
Yes.
It's all right, but I think the idea of just how we grieve, but we give people space to grieve death.
Yeah.
But the sad reality is that grief has to happen, and we have to grieve, I think, anytime we lose something that was, to your point, that was once valuable, that was once meaningful to us, right? And so I think even like that process, the idea of healing, I want to always, just like with grief, there's stages of grief, but there are stages of healing. And I think a common misperception is that there's a certain way you have to go through it and a certain time stamp to get through it, but it's not always the case.
It's not cookie cutter.
And sometimes you can get stuck at a stage. So I guess my question to y'all is like in your journey, because I mean, again, it's easy to laugh and smile now because for some of these things we're kind of on the other side somewhat, right? Right, somewhat. But what do you feel like, I guess, and you brought up a good point about like about forgiveness and self-forgiveness, which I can't wait to get to that episode. But what do you feel like was the hardest part of either grieving for you or healing for you?
When I thought I was going to kill myself. When I got to a point where I no longer wanted to live, you know, that you learn that's not a thing, right? Like
white people do that.
On the wall.
You hear white people do that, right? Yeah. White people think.
Right. It's not it's so hard. And why is it so hard? But then when you feel like you've lost everyone and then seems almost to what like Sasha said, like, listen, this is it. This is it. Like, I'm ready to just be like, Sasha's like, it's done. Like, this is just where we are. This is just what it is. I'm done. And when I felt like I was crying every single day. And I was like, for what? Like, I don't even see anything else.
I'm actually telling my story right here. I don't even got to say nothing else. I was going to nod in agreement at this point because even at that time, she's explaining exactly what I went through, and I've never talked to Auntie before this because that's really how real it is. And I want women especially to understand that this is why it's important to tell your story, because in those dark moments, you really think that it's just you. Mm-hmm. Because sometimes, unfortunately, we have the wrong people around us. They're not providing the right support. And I'm not saying you got to be a therapist like myself or a social worker or in mental health to be supportive of the people that you say you love or that you're connected to. And it's so unfortunate because when we go through things like this and we're in those dark spaces and everybody's looking at you like you're weird, now I'm cocooning myself.
Yeah.
Now I'm isolating myself.
Yes.
And then now my mind is telling me it's just you, sis.
Okay, and we know the power of the mind, okay? And that...
Don't leave me alone with myself.
Okay, don't leave me by myself, okay? Sis, you have me in here pacing like...
I know everything that happened if it's not by myself. I thought about every single scenario. I know everything. Before you even walk through the door, I'm like, oh, this is what was happening. And this is why that happened. And this is the beginning, the end, the middle, the in-between. And this is what's going to happen after you leave. Because I've already thought about it. My brain already told me that's self-sabotage. And that comes from trauma. And that comes from non-forgiveness.
Okay, but when y'all said that, like, that was like, I won't say it was a trigger, but it was a trigger. Because you know what? One of the hardest things for me in healing was accepting that a person or thing wasn't what I thought it was. That was like, honestly, and like, so mind you, like we talk, when you by yourself and you can think of everything else and you can draw your conclusions and connect the dots, but I just couldn't come to terms with somebody just not being who I thought I was. For the very first time, I have never said this out loud. But a part of my journey, and I can't wait to get to this, I was a mistress. And it's crazy because it's a thing that you always say, I would never do. Like, you watch a movie like, I would never do that. I would never be that. But I think also a common misperception about, with movies is that all mistresses willingly go into those relationships, right? It's a common thing of like, when you're a mistress, you know. And I'll be honest in that I knew, but I didn't know. I think, so that relationship, I think, the fact that, God works everything out for our good, that relationship taught me to trust myself more, because there was, like, mind you, I had a million voices, but there was one voice that said something ain't right, Tania. And I ignored her. I didn't ask enough questions. Because I didn't want to believe that person wasn't who I thought he was.
Who I banked on. Who I built that trust with. Who I laid that foundation on. And then you mean to tell me that they just gonna snatch that from us?
Wait, who you took care of? Wait, who you took care of? Who you did things for? Who you put your last on the line for? Who you ruined everything for because you just knew this was what it was.
And I'm just supposed to be okay. And then you can't tell people because you get that, oh wow, that's a trigger for me. Don't give me no oh wow. When I tell you my story.
Oh, no. I can't stand a that's crazy ass nigga, okay? Don't you ever. Okay? That's the one way to get me to never tell you nothing again. Don't let me tell you a 15-minute story and all you got for me is, damn, that's crazy.
Nah. It's nothing worse than, I bet you won't do that again. Now, motherfucker, I bet you I won't do that again, all right? I bet you this motherfucking bet that I won't do that again. Get the fuck out of here. That's it right there.
I bet you I won't talk
facts.
to you again.
But you know what? We laughing, but I'll be fully transparent. And again, you know what? I wish we had, like, I'm looking at the time. We got to do a part 2 to this because this is crazy. But you know what's so crazy is that even after the fact, because, a common misperception is like, you just know. And once you know, that's it. I'll be fully transparent is that even once it was, sometimes when things are, whether it be being a mistress or dealing with an abuser or dealing with a liar or just anything, like, it took me a minute to fully take it for what it was and to see people, because it's like you think if I give them all of me, if I am authentic, if I love with everything in me, if I give them everything, there's no way a person could still do the things that we're talking about. Like, it's like, yo, like, how could, like, you gonna do me like that?
Yeah.
Me, like,
because we gotta stop assuming that we are the fixers. Because that's another thing about trauma is that, okay, but if I, in other words, manipulate this. Remember, manipulation is a neutral word because it depends on the situation we're talking about. So if I manipulate this, in other words, I be what I'm supposed to be. I provide everything. I'm authentic. I'm perfect, or whatever that case may be, then this won't happen or this can't go wrong. Well, we're not, luckily we're not God. And I think that's why God sits back and laughs, because a lot of times our plan versus what his plan is like, sis, I didn't even design that for you.
Facts.
And I think at that point we have to accept our faults, right? Mm-hmm. I think that we have to accept our fault. That's just the biggest part of it. Like, no one's sitting here saying, yeah, because we went through this trauma, we're blaming that individual. Now, no, you were shitty as fuck. You know what I'm saying? Excuse me, but whatever. You were shitty as fuck for doing what you did. Whoever in what retrospect of it. But that's where that forgiveness comes in, and it makes it harder because I let go what you did. It's what I did. It's me. It's what I did. That's the part where it's like, damn, I should have known better, or should I have known better?
Or the better question is, how the fuck did I get here? Have you ever been the thing?
That's the part for me.
And you be like, I can't wait to get to the next series. It's called The Re-Up. Talking about, like, what do you do when you realize you're going the wrong fucking way, right? But, like, have you ever... Okay, have you ever been the thing, like, you doing the math, and you like, okay... How did I get here? When you do things that you like, I never thought I'd be doing this. I never thought I would be in this situation. I never thought that I would get myself in this stuff. And I think that's always the hardest part when it comes to forgiving yourself, right? Because it's easy for us to give people the benefit of the doubt. But I think we put that pressure on ourselves, like, you supposed to know better.
Mm-hmm. You got hustled by the hustler. That's it. How? I know the streets. We know game. We peep game. We already knew. But it was what it was.
Oh my God, okay. Hold on, wait, y'all. Okay, this is see, I knew it gotta be a part 2 to this. There's no way we can end this right here. Okay, you know what? All right. You know what? I don't usually do this, but you know what? We're gonna have week 4. We're gonna do a part 2. We gotta continue this conversation. This has to. Y'all down? Y'all down for a part 2?
For me.
Y'all,
Yeah.
you know what?
I'm just trying to educate the little sisters out there. That's it. Pretty much.
And you know what though?
Men and women.
100%.
Because you know what? I think while women, like, we do carry a heavy burden, I think in a way we know how to vocalize and to release that. But I think sometimes that men, they hold those things in.
Yeah, because they have more on them. They're not allowed to feel. It's like, what? They're human beings.
Wait, Sash.
Sorry.
Next week. They gotta wait till next week. Listen, it's real. Like, this is so real and this is so necessary, man. I don't even know how else to end this, man. Okay, listen, if y'all watching this, if y'all listening to this, y'all gonna have to just tune in to part 2. There's no way we can hit. Oh my goodness, I'm sweating. I'm emotional. I'm sweating, y'all. I'm sweating. Sissy sweating. Okay, we sweating. All right, we gotta do this again. Okay, listen, like, okay, just hang tight.
We don't lick on the face. We talked about this. Oh, hey. So, how was it? Good? Don't lie. Good? Well, hopefully you enjoyed that. As you can see, we didn't even scratch the surface. And so I can't wait even for next week's conversation. He's crazy. But I did want to check back in with you. And so as you saw with some of myself, but just with myself and my friends, is that everyone is hurting, right? Everyone is hurting. Everyone is out here doing the best they can with what they have. But the challenge is that when you don't assess your hurting and when you don't properly address it, you go on to hurt other people, whether it's intentionally or unintentionally. And so as we're preparing to be outside and to go outside, right? Everybody's outside. It's really, really important that you look at who you're going to be and what you're going to look like when you get outside. And so I have these 3 questions for you that I really want you to be thinking about and chewing on throughout this week. And I say throughout the week because I think a common misperception is that you're going to be able to answer these questions immediately. And you're not. You know, it takes time, but also you have to really sit and process and marinate on some of these things. And so my first question to you is, what are your defining moments? Right? As you saw in the episode with my friends and I, we were talking about our childhoods, right? Many a times, like again, in our adulthood, we're seeing symptoms of pain points from our childhood, right? And so we're inaccurately assessing our brokenness. And so whenever I meet with clients, I always try to start back, as far back as they can remember. Because again, when it comes to children, a lot of people think, oh, they don't know, they don't hear, they don't understand. But the fact of the matter is they do, right? And so just like with children, the same goes for you. And so you've experienced some things, good or bad, that whether you want to believe it or not, or admit it or not, you remember. And so my question to you is, what are your defining moments? When you think back on your life, when you think about where you've been and what you've been through, what are the things that stick out to you? You're like, Tania, why is it important? It's important because many a times those defining moments have shaped you and your perspective. And that could be in both a good and or a bad way, right? And so what are your defining moments? Okay, you might go, oh, Tania, I really, really don't know. And that's also okay. Which leads me to my second question, which is, what are you triggered by? You hear that word a lot, and we use it a lot in culture, this idea of trigger. Trigger is, what do you react negatively to? Have you ever, I know it happens to me, and maybe it doesn't happen to you, but it happens to me where I'm like, like when you hate that something bothers you, I'm like, why is this bothering me so much? Like, why is this person, this thing, this situation, this issue bothering me so much? That is called a trigger. Right? And that trigger is just like with a physical pain, it's your body saying that there's something here or here that is in pain. So what is triggering you, or what has triggered you? And then ask yourself why. Why might it be so triggering? Right? And then for my real ones, everybody's not, you know what I'm saying? For me, like I'm real. I want to be authentic. I want people to be authentic with me. So if you're like, you know what, Tania, like I'm a cut the crap, cut the shit right to the point. My question to you is, where does it hurt? Where does it hurt? Have you ever fallen and somebody runs to you and go, where does it hurt? Because you're just in pain. My question to you is, where are you hurting? What do you feel like you're missing? What do you sit up at night wishing you had, wishing was different? What do you, when you're scrolling on your timeline, when you see a picture, when you see a video of somebody else, what feelings come up? Where are you hurting? Think about that. And when you know, my thing is, here's what I'm going to ask you to do. DM it to me. Go to our social media, @the cool auntie. I've been getting some really, really great stories, and I want to hear yours. I want to connect with you because I want you to know that you're not by yourself. Okay? Like I tell you all the time, because no one should do life alone, and I'm here with you. And so this week, I want you to marinate on that. I want you to think about that. But more importantly, if you love the episode, if it inspired you in any way, please share it. And of course, make sure you tap in next week for part 2. Because just like we talked about our road to acceptance this week, we're going to talk about our road to healing next week. And you do not want to miss it. Okay? And so whatever day you're watching this week, I'm letting you know. I'm telling you, make this week your big. I'm working on my cursing. Make it your big. Because God says that you lacked no good thing. So whatever you need to conquer the week, you already have. And whatever you don't have, that's his job. All right? And so have an amazing, amazing week. And oh yeah, love you. Call me back.